You wake up. Before your eyes are even fully open, your hand is already reaching for your phone. Your heart rate ticks up. A small current of anxious anticipation runs through your chest before you've read a single word. That feels like a bad habit, something you picked up, something you could just quit if you tried hard enough. But the real answer is far stranger than habit. The truth is that nothing about you was built for the life you are currently living. Not your attention span, not your stress response, not the part of your brain that decides who is a threat and who is safe. All of it was assembled over hundreds of thousands of years in a world that no longer exists, and you are running that ancient software on a completely different machine. Here's the strange part. The software isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed. The problem is, the world changed faster than biology ever could. For roughly 95% of human existence, you lived in small bands, 20 to 50 people. Everyone you knew personally. Every face was familiar. Every voice had a history attached to it. There was no such thing as a stranger who mattered. If someone new appeared on the horizon, it was rare enough to be an event.
The anthropologist and evolutionary psychologist Robin Dunbar spent years studying primate brain size in relation to group size and found a consistent pattern across species. The bigger the social group an animal lives in, the bigger the brain region dedicated to tracking relationships. When he applied the same math to humans, he arrived at a number that has since become famous, around 150. That's roughly the limit of stable relationships a human brain can meaningfully track. Not acquaintances, not faces, real relationships with context and memory and mutual obligation. Now ask yourself something. How many people does your phone put in front of you before lunch? Hundreds, sometimes thousands, faces, opinions, achievements, tragedies, arguments, all scrolling past in a single unbroken stream. Your brain does not process this as information. It processes it as your tribe. Every one of those strangers gets filed, however briefly, into the same mental slot that used to be reserved for the 50 people who determined whether you ate that week. That's the mismatch. Your social brain evolved for a village. You're feeding it a planet. And the body keeps score of every single interaction as if it still mattered survival level. This is where things get physical, not just psychological.
The researcher Randolph Ness, one of the founders of the field of evolutionary medicine, spent decades studying why the human body seems to malfunction in the modern world. Anxiety, depression, chronic stress. His conclusion wasn't that something had gone wrong with human biology. It was that these systems were never designed for comfort. They were designed for survival. Fear isn't a bug, it's an alarm. And an alarm that never stops ringing isn't broken. It's just responding to a threat that never actually ends. In the ancestral world, a threat arrived, your body responded, and then it was over. A predator either left or it didn't. A conflict with another group either resolved or it didn't. Either way, the stress had a beginning and an end. What happens when the threat has no end? The primatologist Robert Sapolsky spent years studying wild baboons in Kenya, and he found something unsettling. Baboons that lived in highly stratified, socially tense troops had chronically elevated stress hormones, even when there was no predator anywhere nearby. The danger wasn't physical anymore. It was social, rank, reputation, who might turn on whom. Sapolsky's work became one of the clearest illustrations of a chilling idea. Long after physical survival is guaranteed, the stress response can keep firing indefinitely, aimed entirely at social standing. Sound familiar?
You are not being chased by a predator when you refresh an inbox and see an unread message from your boss. You are not in physical danger when a comment on something you posted gets more attention than you expected, in a way that stings. But your body cannot tell the difference between social threat and physical threat. It never needed to. For most of human history, they were the same thing. Losing status in your group didn't just hurt your feelings, it could get you excluded. An exclusion, in a world with no supermarkets and no locks on doors, was often a death sentence. So your nervous system still treats a bad performance review the way it once treated banishments from the fire. This is the part that reframes everything. You are not weak for feeling exhausted by constant notifications, constant comparison, constant low-grade tension. You are precisely engineered to feel that way, given what you're being asked to process. The machinery is ancient, the inputs are brand new, and nobody updated the manual. Think about sleep. For nearly all of human history, night meant darkness, and darkness meant danger, and the body responded by slowing everything down, conserving energy, staying dimly alert. Now you lie in bed at 11 p.m. with a screen 4 inches from your face, emitting the exact wavelength of light that once meant the sun is up, stay awake. Your body isn't confused by weakness, it's responding correctly to false information.
Think about food. For most of your species' history, sugar and fat were rare and valuable, worth craving intensely because calories could mean the difference between surviving winter and not. That craving didn't disappear just because sugar and fat became available on every corner, every hour of every day. The craving is doing exactly what it was built to do. It simply has no idea that scarcity ended. Think about attention itself. A rustle in the grass, a sudden movement, a loud, unexpected sound. These used to demand immediate focus because ignoring them could be fatal. Now that same reflex gets hijacked by a notification chime designed by people who have studied exactly how to trigger it. You are not disciplined. You are being pulled by a lever that has worked on primates for millions of years. Here is the twist that changes how all of this should feel. None of this makes you defective. It makes you consistent. Your ancestors, who survived long enough to become your ancestors, were the ones whose alarm systems worked a little too well, not a little too poorly. Every anxious, hyper-aware, socially sensitive impulse running through you today is the direct output of 10,000 generations of people who did not get eaten, did not get exiled, did not get outcompeted for a mate or a meal. You are the end result of a very long, very effective filtering process. The problem was never the filter. The problem is what's now being filtered. So what do you actually do with that? You start by naming the mismatch instead of blaming yourself for it. The next time you feel a jolt of anxiety from a message that objectively poses no threat to your survival, you can recognize what's happening underneath it. An ancient alarm doing its ancient job in a context it was never built to evaluate. That single act of recognition doesn't erase the feeling, but it changes your relationship to it. You can also start shrinking your world back toward the size it was built for. Dunbar's number isn't a trivia fact, it's a design constraint. Trying to emotionally maintain meaningful connection with thousands of people will always leave you feeling scattered and inadequate because you are attempting something no human brain in history has ever successfully done. Investing deeply in a small number of real relationships isn't a limitation, it's alignment with the architecture you were actually given. And you can start treating rest, darkness, and boredom not as inefficiencies to optimize away, but as conditions your biology still quietly expects. The nervous system that runs your body evolved in long stretches of stillness, punctuated by short bursts of intensity. It did not evolve for constant, low-grade stimulation with no true recovery in between. Giving it back even small pockets of that old rhythm isn't indulgence, it's maintenance. None of this means retreating from modern life. It means understanding, finally, why modern life can feel so strangely heavy even when nothing is technically wrong. You are not failing to adapt to the 21st century. You are succeeding perfectly at surviving a world you were never designed to live in, using tools that were built for a completely different one. So tonight, when you reach for your phone before your eyes are even open and your heart rate ticks up before you've read a single word, remember what that actually is.
It isn't weakness. It isn't a lack of willpower. It's 40,000 years of finely tuned survival instinct, still faithfully standing guard, aimed at a world that no longer needs it to fight quite so hard.